Hi, I'm Diane Dayton. We're taking a look at the Colebrookdale Railroad in Boyertown, Pennsylvania. With us right now is General Manager Denny Emmerich. Thank you for being here.
You're very welcome.
This is fabulous, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Marvelous work done by our volunteers.
It's wonderful.
Very, very detailed. They do a good job.
Explain to everyone where the name came from.
Colebrookdale, it comes from Colebrookdale Village, which we're going to pass through as we go down the track on our journey south. But it really comes from Colebrookdale, England, which is where Thomas Rudder, who brought iron to the colonies, was from. And it was a big iron producing community. Came here, named it for his hometown.
Okay. There's a lot of activity that goes on here, and you're really engaged with the community. Some of the things that happen are seasonal. I know in the fall you have the Splendor, the Autumn Splendor ride, right?
The Autumn Splendor is a really great ride here at the Colebrookdale because our train track goes through a great valley that's really not visible unless you're off the beaten path. So we go through glens, we go through mountainous stuff. We have rock cuts that were a part of the construction that are just 5 inches wider than the train that we go through. So we really have to monitor our passengers. They don't stick an arm out or someone they don't like.
Right.
But we have wildlife along the path, and in the autumn, I mean, it's great all year round. But in the autumn, it's really spectacular as the leaves change. We just have a lot of appreciation for it, and so do our passengers.
Yes, I can imagine so. And the holidays are special too, and you do different things, like around Halloween.
Well, we do all kind of things. So we do ghost rides. Boyertown, which we're in right now, is one of the most haunted towns in the country, partly because of the Rhodes Opera House fire back in 1908. So we have a great, our ghost rides have a great deal of popularity. We do Halloween pumpkin patch runs. We start in Pottstown, which is the other end of our track, and we come up a little way, but we work with the Pottstown Carousel as a partner to provide an experience that's really unique any place in the state, certainly, but probably in the East Coast and maybe the country.
Okay. Santa is important around the holidays.
Santa is wonderful here. We're very fortunate that we have our volunteer staff is very committed to our trains, and in the December run starting this Friday after Thanksgiving, we start Santa runs. It's a really great experience, and we're pleased to have very high ratings on TripAdvisor.
What else I think is wonderful is how you connect with the community. For instance, doing the farm-to-table events. Correct.
We try to, well, first of all, let me go back and tell you that the reason I'm involved in this railroad is not because I'm a railroader. Now, that may be blasphemy in some places. But for me, this railroad has the opportunity to turn around the economy of Boyertown and Pottstown and the communities in between. So I'm interested in the economic development. And of course, our vision is to create the best tourist railroad in the 1900 to 1920 era and drive economic development in the Tri-County area. So that's really important. Consequently, on both ends of this track, we try to emphasize the communities. Here in Boyertown, we know there are at least 12 businesses that have started because we've been here. And that's important to us. We'll soon have a station we anticipate in Pottstown, which will give us an opportunity to partner in greater opportunities with the community down there.
Okay. So the farm-to-table events.
The farm-to-table events, yes. The farm-to-table events are just one of the ways that we try to deal with the culture that we're in our area. We have some great farms. We have some great farm markets here. Free-cons and some others that we work with, and then we have this year a really wonderful 5-star restaurant doing our farm-to-table experiences here that will run through the month of October and early November.
Okay. One of the other things that you do, you get involved, like for instance with wine tasting. I think you're doing something with Blair Winery.
We are, in fact. Blair Winery is one of the partners that we have to try to provide experiences. I like to say that every ride on the Colebrookdale is an experience, whether it's one of our Autumn Splendor rides or our Secret Valley expeditions, or the Easter Bunny train, or Mother's Day, high tea, Father's Day beef and beer, all of them. So we have cigar and scotch trains. We do wine tasting. Blair is one of the vendors for sure. We do our farm to table. We're going to do some zombie runs coming up here in a couple weeks.
I think there's a whiskey tasting.
There is whiskey. Dad's hat, I think. I'm not I don't drink, so so this is kind of foreign to me. But we have some folks on our staff who are experts at this.
There's beer tasting too.
Beer tasting. We have one coming up in a couple of weeks, and we have several vendors that we use for all of these. So it's not just one vendor. There's an opportunity to come on to train for each of the experiences and have a different experience because there's a different vendor involved.
And you do charters too, right?
We do charters. We do a lot of bus tours. A lot of bus groups. We've got 50 people on the car today for lunch from a bus tour. But we also will take charter the whole train. You can use it as a fundraiser. We'll work with you to with a group to get the appropriate experience for you. But that's also available. So a car, you can buy the seats out. You can buy a car, or you can buy the whole train.
And speaking of the whole train, we're sitting in the parlor car. This is magnificent.
This really is. This is the way a parlor car would have looked in the golden age of railroading, which is part of our optic. And we try to restore all of our cars to that kind of optic. So whether it's our cafe car or our dining car, which is currently under restoration, the experience is one of first-class service. And it's not only the car, it's also the staff that we provide with it.
And the dining car is beautiful too, all the white brightness.
The dining car is beautiful, but it's only just a hint of what it's going to be. Okay. That'll be designed so that there'll be a couple of stained glass domes in that car. There'll be some opportunity for just some really great experience and food as well as the experience of being in a car that's unique. That's unique.
I hear you also have a new engine.
We just had delivery of a new engine brought to us by one of our donors. The engine will be painted over the next several months and go into service shortly, but we're excited about the engine. We're excited about all of our experiences here, whether it's the bricks that are going to go in our yard, 118,000 bricks made in Pennsylvania from 1900, 1910. We salvaged them out of a landfill, brought them in from western Pennsylvania, and in the next few weeks they'll come in here as a walkway from Philadelphia Avenue. In addition to that, there'll be gas lights. This will be the only gas lights in district in Berks County. So we think this is really a place to come, a place that will attract folks. And we now have folks from all 48 continental states, well, I should say 49, I guess, with Alaska, and Puerto Rico and 5 foreign countries. One of my favorite things to do is to talk with the passengers when they come on, and I'll ask questions like, how many of you here for the first time? About 50% say they're here for the first time. Where are you from? Some of them from local. But then I'll say, where are you from? North Carolina. How about you? South Carolina. How about you? San Juan, Puerto Rico. Why are you here? We came to ride this train. We think this train is unique in all the country. And you won't ride cars like this anyplace else.
And what is the website? The
website is Colebrookdale
And we're going to find a lot of things on there. We can find out the specific dates for all of these different events that you're talking about.
Absolutely. We want our folks to, want everybody to visit. Usually when I say, as folks are leaving the train, I'll say to them, hey, tell all your friends. No. Tell your enemies too. We want them all.
And it's a great intergenerational experience, as well as bringing all your friends together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
we have women's groups who come on the parlor car to celebrate a birthday or just to get out. You know, women tend to do that. Men tend to do it as well, but they do it a little differently.
Yeah.
But we see all kind of groups come in here. Yeah. Sometimes in the intimacy of this car, which is really a treat.
It is. Well, thank you so much for taking time to tell us what the experience is here at Colebrookdale Railroad. It is just amazing.
It's an experience you won't have anyplace else.
Yeah, so take a look here
Thank you.
at Colebrookdale Railroad in Boyertown, Pennsylvania. Hi, I'm Diane Dayton. Today we're going to take a look at Colebrookdale Railroad in Boyertown, Pennsylvania. With us right now, we have Nathaniel Guest, and you are the Executive Director of the Colebrookdale Preservation Trust. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having us here in this beautiful car.
My pleasure.
What is the history of Colebrookdale Railroad?
So the railroad was founded in 1865. And it was chartered by the Pennsylvania legislature a number of years before that. And soldiers just home from the Civil War built the railroad starting in 1865 and continuing all the way through till 1869 when they drove the line in September of that year to right here where we're sitting today. The line was very difficult to build. It took 4 years to build 8 miles of railroad track between here and Pottstown at a time when folks working on the Transcontinental Railroad were building 10 miles of track every day. So I figured 4 years for 8 miles. It's very difficult terrain, which was tough for them, but great for us because we have one of the most beautiful railroad journeys anywhere in Pennsylvania and probably in the East. Deep, tall rock cuts, very tall forests, rushing creeks alongside our trains, and 11 spectacular bridges between here and Pottstown. Lots and lots to maintain. The railroad served to connect the sites of the earliest iron-making industries in the New World. The reason it's called the Colebrookdale Railroad is because it's named after Colebrookdale, England, site of the world's very first iron industry. And they chose that name because this was the New World's first iron industry. Legend has it that the pathway that our train takes follow Indian paths of the Lenni Lenape between what we now know as Boyertown and Pottstown. I don't know if that is true. Certainly it seems to make sense because there were thriving Indian populations here. But this railroad was built to connect the iron mines and the iron forges, foundries, and furnaces along the Ironstone and Manatone Creeks. The railroad served as a freight railroad predominantly for most of its life until it was threatened with abandonment in 2014.
Okay. This is a wonderful experience for you. How did you get involved?
So I was living in New York and actually was on vacation with my family in Cape May, New Jersey. And I read an article that this railroad line in my hometown was being abandoned. And I think it's probably in the minority at that point of knowing what the history and culture, the history and cultural significance of the railroad was, and the beauty of the railroad. And having been raised on the memories of rides on Pennsylvania's absolutely stellar tourist railroads, I had this thought that this would be a remarkable tourist line. You had two communities, Boyertown and Pottstown, one on either end of the line, looking to reinvent themselves, and every iteration of that plan for reinvention included an aspect of heritage tourism. And so what better anchor heritage tourism asset could there be than the Colebrookdale Railroad? Additionally, the railroad is Eastern Berks County's only link to the National Freight Network, so if you want to have any hope of taking all of those trucks off of Route 100 and 422, this railroad is the key. So it had suffered probably 20 years of disinvestment and dwindling use, and so I had this idea that somebody should do something, and in a fit of insanity decided, well, let's let it be me. So we contacted the Berks County legislature, the Berks County Commissioners, I should say, and thanks to the leadership of those gentlemen, including Commissioner Mark Scott and Commissioner Christian Leinbach and Commissioner Kevin Barnhart, they saved the railroad. And it was upon finding out from the Surface Transportation Board that the abandonment was not going to go through and the line would be saved, we sort of found ourselves in a position of, okay, like the dog that catches the car and goes, now what? We've got a beautiful railroad, a historic railroad connecting two important communities, but it has no freight traffic, no locomotives, no cars, no crew. The track needs work and the bridges need work. So apart from that, we were ready to go. Knowing that we had this now opportunity in front of us, I left my job. I was working as an attorney in a firm near Philadelphia, and with $20,000 in the bank and about $200,000 in liabilities, made this my full-time avocation.
Well, this is beautiful, and we look at all the cars. This, the one we're in, is the parlor car. Tell me about this one.
This car, like all of the cars, has a unique individual history, and every one of the cars is different, is used for a different purpose. But the thing they all had in common when they came here is they were derelicts. The only thing you can say about them is that they once resembled railroad cars. And so you take one of the rusty hulks that with no floor, no ceiling, no windows, no seats, no lights, no heat, no bathrooms, no sound system, and you add all of those things back in. 200,000 hours of volunteer work, about $200,000 worth of donations for each car, and you get these beautifully restored masterpieces that won acclaim far and wide.
And this particular car is used for what?
So this is our first-class car, our first-class parlor. And if you think of a smoking lounge, though we don't smoke in here, a smoking lounge or a bar, that's kind of what the parlor car is. So we have our wine tasting events, whiskey tasting events. Basically, if it's alcoholic, we offer it as a tasting event here on board the train. There's a fully outfitted bar. And also we're hoping later on this year to put in a grand piano so that will truly replicate, the closest thing that you can get is the Orient Express.
Wow, what a wonderful experience.
Thank you.
The next car to this is the dining car, right?
That's one of our most popular cars for the obvious reason that that's where you can eat. We've garnered acclaim for our food service, and the reason for that is that we don't do the cooking. We partner with the finest restaurants in southeastern Pennsylvania to provide food service, and the goal of partnering with multiple restaurants is really to be able to offer a taste of the food traditions of Pennsylvania. And so 40 persons can have a meal in the dining car, and that's breakfast, lunch, or dinner. We operate trains of those kinds throughout the course of the year. And if you're riding the dining car, just as if you're riding in the parlor car or any other car in our train, you have the option of going to the open car, which is one of the most popular cars in the train. We're the only railroad, as far as I know, where you can buy a seat in any car, and you can go to the open car anytime you like and take in 360-degree views of the Secret Valley.
Yeah, the open car is just magnificent, the views you can get. But between that and the dining car, we have, what, the coach car? That's
our deluxe coach. So the coach was the first car that we restored. It was built in 1919 as an immigrant sleeping car. And again, when we brought it here, it actually had no floor. You could see the tracks through the body of the car as you went down the rails as we were bringing it here to Boyertown for restoration. When we put it into service, we knew we needed to start with the baseline accommodation, and we would add the first class and dining services later. we feel fairly confident, thanks to what folks have told us, that even our baseline accommodation is equivalent to a first-class experience elsewhere.
Wow. Well, I think the caboose is a gem.
Yes, it is. The caboose has an amazing history, both its early life and how it came back to life here on the Colebrookdale. It was built in 1941 in Altoona by the Pennsylvania Railroad to a standard Pennsylvania design and served throughout the Pennsylvania Railroad system for its life. Ended up on a tourist railroad in northwestern Pennsylvania called the Knox and Cane, where I believe it suffered a fire of all indignities. Was purchased by a gentleman and his friends and the National Railway Historical Society chapter in Ravenna in Virginia. And they moved the car to Virginia to restore, far from its home rails, and they spent a number of years restoring it. And after it was completed, they didn't have a place to run it. And so they were shopping for a good home for their caboose. And as you might imagine, there were quite a few suitors for the caboose. I mean, a fully restored railroad car being offered for free doesn't happen too often. And so at that point in our trajectory, we didn't have a locomotive. We certainly were not operating. We had a good plan, and we were working towards operation. The folks, to their credit, came up and took a chance on us, interviewed us, and were so taken with the passion that the folks in Boyertown and Pottstown had for this railroad that they chose to make us the caboose's new home. And since then, it's delighted thousands of passengers over the course of the past few years.
Yeah. So you have a website, and what are we going to find on the website?
The website is chock full of everything you might want to know about the Colebrookdale Railroad. We have information about our different types of accommodations, our coach cars, our dining cars, the lounge, the parlor car, as well as the meals that we serve on board the train. You can make a reservation for the train, and we certainly encourage folks to do that because the train does sell out regularly. And you can find out more about the history of the railroad and the effort to save it. So it's a great resource.
This is wonderful for the economy around here. And there's some wonderful plans that are in the works, right?
That's right. For as much as we love trains and the historic preservation value of the railroad, this is really a community and economic development initiative. And the railroad has brought $2 million of economic boost each year of its operation to Boyertown. 30,000 passengers from every state in the Union and many foreign countries have come here. And you know, when they arrive, just as you did today, you see a railroad yard under construction. And sometimes when they arrive, we see their expressions and they realize that what we've gotten ourselves into. But when they come on board the train and they see the scenery, really they understand it was worth the trek. The construction zone is really part and parcel of our larger plans to create a unique, beautiful space, both here in Boyertown and in Pottstown. So we've got 50 original gas lamps from Philadelphia. They're Victorian gas lamps, and thanks to the generosity of UGI, we will be reinstalling them to actually operate as Berks County's only gas lamp district. 180,000 brick pavers will be installed. They were donated by Pitcairn, a borough near Pittsburgh. The only caveat, we can have them for free. We had to dig them out from underneath 300 tons of dirt. So we did that and brought them here. And we'll be installing them in October as part of our plan to make the railroad handicapped accessible. Not an easy task for a 150-year-old railroad. And of course, a beautiful new station is going to be built in Pottstown in December 2018. So lots of big and exciting things upcoming.
And this is a great experience for all generations, and it brings the generations together. And I know that has special significance to you, too.
It does. Really what got me into all of this was my grandfather and the time I spent riding trains with my grandfather. They were and are my happiest memories, and I knew if I had the opportunity when I grew up, which I haven't done yet, but I'm working on it, to create a place where those kind of memories can be made between grandparents and grandchildren, parents and children, that would be a lifetime and a career well spent. And so that is the most rewarding part for me. One of the cornerstones of this project has been accessibility. And as I mentioned, making a railroad, a 150-year-old railroad, handicapped accessible is not easy. But our next project is the creation of a railroad car for persons of all levels of mobility. And so we will be the only railroad, as far as I know, in our region to have a car that will be able to allow persons of all mobility issues to create those kind of memories that I had with my grandfather.
Yeah.
Knowing that's happening right here on board this train is very special.
So I know it's work for you, but in a way, It's not too.
It's like working at Disneyland.
There you go. You can't beat that.
Yeah.
And with that thought in mind, we want to invite you to make sure you come by and check out Colebrookdale Railroad right here in Boyertown, Pennsylvania.
We'll be getting underway shortly, so welcome aboard. Have a nice, pleasant trip.